5.
Curry hits a three.
4.
Just for the try. Deep left field.
3.
Magic hit by Watt. Sack number 10.
2.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
1.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Trevor.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of BSS Sports. My name is Stephen Schill with the ever-lovely Trevor Struthers. And of course, Belleville Senators are a thing that is here and hopefully to stay because it is pure entertainment. 148 penalty minutes on Wednesday of last week against the Binghamton Devils, which is the, former team that is the Belleville Senators. And I don't know why this rivalry is becoming a thing. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it's becoming one. So 148 penalty minutes. We've seen a ton of fights, brawls, the whole ordeal that way. Fairly chippy game. Belleville ends up winning it in a shootout, and then the Manitoba Moose come to town on Friday and then score 3 goals in the fourth period after the game being tied 3-3, resulting in a Belleville Senators loss. And then Belleville went down to Binghamton, and then they ended up losing to the Devils. Couple more fights, but not necessarily as interesting, if you will, over there. But is this normal for American hockey league-wise? Because Providence and the Hershey Bears decided to have a goalie fight, and there was another brawl over the weekend as well. And it just seems that fisticuffs are alive and well in the American Hockey League.
I feel like that's about the thing for the AHL is that, usually when it comes to, and I think we're starting to move past this now because the guys that were the goons at the NHL level, their contracts are up and they're nowhere now, but it's like when the league basically decided to not play their goons in the NHL anymore, they all have to send them down to the AHL, so they all get down to the AHL, and then that's where they end up playing, and guys like Tom Sestito, Fraser McLaren, Colton Orr, guys like that all of a sudden end up in the AHL. And there is sort of that. I feel like you have a lot more grittier players in the AHL. Guys like Tyler Randall, former Belleville Bull, now Belleville Senator, where guys aren't afraid to drop the mitts if need be. And you have situations sometimes that call for it. I remember in that Binghamton game here in Belleville, there was an issue with the head. It was a pretty nice hip check, actually. I want to say it was by Andreas Engelund, but I might be wrong on that. But it was a real nice hip check. Binghamton took exception to that, and all of a sudden you have all kinds of physicality breaking out and fights, basically. And I think there was two fights in the one stoppage at one point in that game. So, obviously, right there, that's an immediate game misconduct for whoever's in that second fight. But, hey, that's the AHL for you. And to some, I know this is the kind of hockey that you tend to enjoy, because I've been to hockey games with you, junior hockey games as well, where they're starting to move away from that stuff. But if you're into a physical hockey game style, this is more your cup of tea, no doubt, than junior hockey league, because the junior hockey league are pretty much boys compared to men. That's the big comparable between the two, right? Is you have guys that are 20, 21 or younger in junior hockey. AHL, it's all grown men. And there is no fight restrictions on anything. And you do see a more physical level of hockey in the AHL, but also a more competitive level of hockey from the standpoint of it's a faster game, it's a professional game, and these guys, obviously, you've probably heard this enough if you've been paying attention to the media and everything, that, really the AHL is just one step away from the NHL, so it's incredibly physical. These are the two bottom feeders in the North Division, so it's not surprising they get physical, but, from all intents and purposes, it was a great hockey game, not to mention the fact, in that very same game, the last game at the Yardman before the Manitoba game, with that game against Binghamton, they were down 3-0. They ended up coming back, winning it in a shootout to go along with all the physicalness. Overall, if you were at that game, like I know you were, Steve, it's a kind of game that can win you over for sure.
Oh, 100%. And the one thing that I noticed was, if we're causing this many penalties and everything, our penalty minutes are going to be insane. And when we first talked about the Senators on the show, looking at, what the team's looking like, they were leading the league in penalty minutes. And, a couple weeks later, it's still the case at 571 minutes, meaning a lot of fights and et cetera, et cetera. But at the same token, doesn't that kind of put you in a rut like every single game if you're getting that much penalties, even if some of them are resulting in fights?
Yeah, I mean, obviously 5-minute majors don't put you down a man, but it's also 5 minutes to the other side. And so there is a lot of excessive penalty minutes that the team is taking, at the fact that they're leading the league. But, penalties are something that are going to hurt you when they're 2-minute minors. And we've seen a lot of them, and they have come back to haunt Belleville. But, this is a physical hockey team for the most part, and they do have their standout elite hockey players. I mean, Colin White's a first-round pick. Tom Chabot, when he was down in Belleville, he was a first-round pick. But they also have physical defensemen. Ben Harper just came back to rejoin the team over the last few days, so that was great to get a guy like him back, and he made an immediate impact. But he's a physical defenseman. Andreas Englund, a big guy, big physical defenseman. Eric Bergdorfer, another physical defenseman. And so they're a physical team, really. And sometimes, unfortunately, with that comes penalty minutes, especially when you're an AHL team.
And right now, they got 25 points on the season, and leading the North Division in the AHL that the Senators are in is, of course, the Toronto Marlies with 42. Now, moving on to NHL news. If you have not heard of the hashtag Melnyk out, tweets such as "Good morning, everyone," except for Eugene Melnyk, and more were dispersed over this weekend over his comments regarding the Senators and that he didn't want to go bankrupt for a hockey team, if I remember correctly, which is kind of a weird phrase. And then for the first time, people really enjoyed Gary Bettman because he was like, nope, the team is not going anywhere. The fallout obviously was pretty extreme from Eugene Melnyk's case, but the players played well. They had the 100th classic game, or the 100th year of the NHL. Ottawa won that 3-0, all happily daisily, but still Erik Karlsson talks of trading and everything. But I get that it's Monday and this kind of just happened, but I feel like it's almost already washed over, the Melnyk hate. I don't know. Haven't really checked the whole social media, but I feel Gary Bettman's comments really kind of toned it down a little bit.
Yeah, a good performance in an outdoor game will do that if you're Ottawa, in terms of trying to calm things down after the comments. Really, in Ottawa, it was a great weekend for the organization. The only downside was, of course, the Eugene Melnyk comments, and it's funny he makes them. And a lot of Gary Bettman. Gary Bettman was obviously there for the outdoor game. It was the standout game on the schedule on Saturday, and so Bettman was there and almost had to try to calm things down from a PR perspective over the whole comments of. It almost seemed like a threat that Eugene Melnyk, if the fans don't show up, was willing to move the hockey team. He said he wasn't interested in selling, but he said relocation is always an option, right? So his wording was horrible. This is a guy around 2003 saved the Ottawa Senators by buying the team and keeping them in Ottawa. But since then has been a guy that fans have got on due to his hesitation to want to spend money and dedicate to this hockey team. And he said he doesn't want to throw away a life's workload of money on a hockey team. And technically, those are the kind of risks you need to take when you own a hockey team. And so Sens fans have been wanting him to sell. And there's been rumors about him maybe selling the hockey team over the last 2 weeks. And that's one of the things he kind of tried to kill when he talked to the media, was saying that he's not interested in selling the team. And so it looks like maybe he's not going to sell the hockey team. But definitely Senators fans, that was the whole point of the Melnyk out hashtag, was to try to get him to sell the team. And the whole point about fans not showing up is the issue is that the arena is in Canada and that it's hard to get to. You have all the traffic going to the one place once you get around there, but it's hard to get to, whether from Orleans, whether it be from Ottawa. And then you had, for that hockey game, that outdoor game at Lansdowne Park, you had, like 30,000 fans, probably more than that. I know they were prepared for more than that, jammed into that place in Ottawa. And if you're able to get this team at LeBreton Flats, I think is the planned location to build an arena. I think it'll work out great for the Ottawa Senators to actually have an arena that's in Ottawa where the people are and not out, Canada, half an hour, probably closer to an hour with traffic to get to when you're trying to get to a game after work. So,
what do you do with the old arena though? Because it's one of the nicer arenas that I've been to, and it's not that old. What are you going to do with that one? Are you going to try to have the 67s play there? There's not really a whole lot you can do. Maybe bring a lacrosse team there.
I think the plan eventually is to move the farm team that's right now in Belleville. I think the plan eventually might be to move it there. But that's like 7 years down the road. Right now, the Belleville Senators are on like a 7-year, commitment here to the Airman Arena and to Belleville. So that's kind of down the road. Obviously, they still have an arena to build, and it sounds like the arena might not even get built. I think that was another thing that came out of the Eugene Melnyk press conference thing that he held just before the alumni game, right there at rink level. It was quite the distraction. If anything, was Eugene Melnyk talking, and he actually had to turn down a bunch of media. They were reaching out to him the day of the game, and he turned them all down. So obviously somebody got to him in his ear and told him not to talk to the media, because I feel like that's one thing, if there's one thing he has an issue of saying no to, it's media requests. So he didn't speak at all after that, and it's kind of left a bad taste in Senators fans' mouth coming from the owner, because, obviously the last time we heard from him, it was all these comments that brought on the Melnyk out hashtag. But if you're a Senators fan, things have kind of been iffy. It's been a tough run. They've won 2 in a row now against the Rangers, against the Habs outdoors, and they're trying to turn the table, and now this is a distraction that might help the team, but really just kind of adds fuel to the fire from a fan's perspective.
I still think they should just leave the team in Belleville. We're in like a good spot because, you always have the arguments of, okay, are people going to be Leafs fans or Senators fans in this area, or technically Canadiens fans? And I think having the team in Belleville definitely does promote being a Senators fan, because I feel like I'm more leaning towards that because I can watch the team live. So in NFL news, the Carolina Panthers owner is looking to sell the team. This is all turning into the owner talk. First Eugene Melnyk, and now the Carolina Panthers over some allegations. Hasn't really clarified if that's the reason. We can all assume that it is. But now we got P. Diddy, Colin Kaepernick, and Steph Curry wanting to buy the team. However, the estimated worth of the team is $2.3 billion. Is it likely that P. Diddy and Colin Kaepernick will own the Carolina Panthers in 2018?
It really comes down to how much money they have, and between them, there might be enough money there. If you throw Steph into the mix and all that, gosh, that's a lot of money. But if you look at it, the Carolina Panthers aren't a bad football team, right? They're not a team that you would have to worry about attendance either. They're 10-4 now on the season after beating Aaron Rodgers in his return, and they're a team that is focused on trying to make a playoff berth here. So it's interesting. I haven't heard overall the whole story, but I'm interested on why the owner wants to sell. And this interest to buy the team isn't too surprising. There's a lot of money made in the NFL. That's just a fact. And it's not surprising that guys that potentially might have that money, if they join together in an ownership group, would want to jump in. It's a smart investment if you have the money to spend it on an organization that's not the Cleveland Browns.
And now for the games of the evening, Jacksonville clinched a playoff spot by beating the Houston Texans 45-7. The Legion of Boom is no longer, as the LA Rams put up 42 against the Seahawks. The San Francisco 49ers are on a 3-game winning streak after trading for the Patriots' Jimmy Garoppolo. And then
haven't lost yet with Garoppolo.
It's friggin' fantastic. And the New England Patriots squeaking one out against the Pittsburgh Steelers 27-24. Heck of a game, intriguing all around. Trev, what was your take on the, I guess 2 things. Number 1, Antonio Brown getting hurt right after Ryan Shazier. And then at number 3, the call that everyone is saying it should not have been made.
Antonio Brown obviously going down is a big thing. The Steelers do expect him back for the playoffs, which is great obviously for them because they're a playoff-bound team. But he has a partially torn calf. It's unlikely he'll play next week. It's probably also unlikely he'll play in Week 17 just before the playoffs. So basically his regular season's done. But they do expect him back, hopefully, for the playoffs. So, that's obviously a big bright spot. He is. There's a lot of great talent on that offense for the Steelers. But he's the star. That's just a fact. So hopefully, it looked bad when it happened. He had to be helped off the field, didn't put weight on it. And it was, just took a few minutes on the sideline for him to head down the tunnel, and he also ultimately ended up being sent to the hospital before the game was done. So considering all of that, it's great news for the Steelers. They probably at that point were wondering about his playoff future, but it's just starting to look bright from that perspective. From the other side, I mean, the Steelers had a lead late in this game, and I mean, it's tough to beat the Patriots. You know, when you have your full roster with you, you lose your best receiver, and then obviously it takes a whole nother hit. But the Steelers had a lead late in the game. The Patriots end up outscoring the Steelers 11-0 in the fourth quarter, end up with a 3-point lead. Steelers have a chance to tie it on a game-winning drive, and a great play by Juju Smith-Schuster. You know, it was a reception that he caught basically at his own 20, took it down to basically the opponent's 20. Big pickup there. That was the first play from scrimmage following being down 3 points for the Steelers. They have like under a minute left to work with, and I believe just the one timeout. And so, I mean, they're obviously rushing and trying to end up tying or winning the game. They're down by 3 points, so a field goal could tie it. And ultimately, you had the catch that wasn't a catch. It was originally ruled a touchdown, a catch by tight end Jesse James right at the end zone. And you have to look up this highlight if you haven't seen it yet. You can find it on Twitter, every social media. You know, turn on your TV to a sports network. You'll find the highlight. There's no doubt about that. You have to watch this highlight because a lot of people are talking about the whole. He caught the football, was falling to the ground. He broke the plane of the goal line, but when he hit the ground, the ball kind of popped loose and apparently hit the ground. And it's tough to even tell when looking at replay, but you have to maintain control. The rule is you have to maintain control of the ball through ground contact, even if you've already broke the plane of the end zone. So it was ruled. I mean, and they got it right. That is the rule. I don't like the rule, but they got it right on that call. So there's not much you can say about that. But I mean, I think it's a rule that's got to go, but it was the right call, and obviously hurts the Steelers.
Always the Patriots. It's always the Patriots. That's it for this edition of BSS Sports. Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And of course, we'll catch you next Monday.